when you come to the Planning Commission and need to speak to Ethan, it is on the 3rd floor. The 3rd floor. Look at this. Have you ever been in the Opera House, man? You gotta go here sometime.
I'm Karen Hill, and I'm the office manager here at the Planning Commission. And I'm relatively new to this organization. I worked for the Downtown Rutland Partnership for 8 years, left and went to work for the state for a long while, and now I'm back working for the city and the region and the district.
Excellent. What do you like best about your job here?
I love that I am working with a team of professionals who are working really hard and diligently to improve the community where I pay taxes and the district that I pay taxes in, and making Vermont an amazing place to live and work and play and do all the things that we love to do because we live here.
Cost of engaging in sort of some of these more projects can really get, up there, but we're a public body, so we don't do that, so we sort of break that model. So I think that's sort of something that's really important to be aware of, because oftentimes when some of the projects we've been around, I've heard people like, oh, I bet it costs tens of thousands of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars in like engineering or whatever, and like the reality is it's not true at all, because that's how a consultancy works, where they're for-profit, and we're not a for-profit consultancy, we're a government body, so our real goal is public service, and that's a pretty big difference in how the actual organization functions, but when it comes down to it, average citizen might sort of see us as the same kind of thing.
Okay. You had a lot of knowledge about the history of Rutland City. How did you gain all that knowledge? Did you have to study it? Did you have to tour it on foot? Did you have to talk to a lot of people?
Yeah, it's kind of a combination of things. I'm just really fascinated by cities, and their history, and so like when I live in a place, I just sort of learn about the history, because like cities, you can actually go and visit that place, and that has sort of taught me almost this sort of like detective vision to sort of like look and see at like discontinuities and sort of start to piece together an overall perspective just based on like historical trends that happen pretty similar everywhere. Like old buildings get dilapidated, there's not money to fix them up. Rather than fixing them up, they get torn down and replaced with, a strip mall or CVS. That kind of thing happens everywhere. So there's like this tension between a unique history that's unique to every city, but there's also these overall trends which allow you to sort of put together a broad picture.
Yeah.
So just walking around, looking at the street grid, seeing where the sidewalk ends, for example, all these kind of cues where the building's form change sort of gave me an overall picture, and then to fill that in, you really just got to go to the actual historical record. And so there's two main resources I consulted. There's the History of the Marble Valley, which is a book written by someone, and there's, I can't remember the guy's name. And then there's also a really good master's thesis, actually, by somebody for a history master's program, which really focuses on especially like that period of growth around the railroad, and how Rutland became sort of the Rutland of sort of the commanding heights of the marble industry, and sort of how it got to where it is today. And sort of a big piece of that author's analysis was transportation technology. He talks a lot about like the railroads and how, back Redfield Proctor, who owned the Marble Corporation, like literally owned all of the rail lines, and so could control transportation. And so like, in cases of labor stress, they literally shut down the entire railway.
Come on in. Oh, you're good. Just chatting.
But, yeah, so it's only those two. It's just like walking around and having that overall background knowledge, and then going to the actual just sources that tell you that individual story. But this is also Nick, our GIS plan.
Hey, Nick.
Hello.
How you doing? It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Julie. Yeah.
Who's the puppy?
That's Reggie.
Reggie? Hi. Have you been planning for the planning commission for puppies?
He's what was his title? Compost manager.
Waste enforcement officer. He checks all the trash cans to make sure, there's nothing like food waste is being put in the trash can, because that should go in the compost. So he's really good about enforcing that around here. Yeah.
Good job, Reggie. Good boy. Okay, Nick.
Yes.
So I haven't had a chance to talk with you as much as Ethan, only because Ethan's been the guy bringing over the maps and talking to me at the gallery a lot. But he has talked a lot about you, and I wanted to learn about how you guys put together these overlay maps that we see at the gallery on display right now.
Sure. The first part is really just gathering the data, and what we used primarily were, there were two maps that I created. The first one was using aerial photography that was taken
1942.
42.
Before the end of World War II and the massive suburban expansion.
Yes.
Okay.
That makes sense. And that data we got from VCGI, right? So those images were provided by the Vermont Council on Geographic Information. They're basically like the consortium at the state level that coordinates all like spatial data for the state.
Okay.
And they're awesome. They do lots of great work. But they had sent those photos like maybe a month or two prior to this project even kicking off.
Yeah, it was. I think they're in the process of digitizing like the state level archives, but they're like in halfway through. So that happened to be a collection that was like a third digitized. Luckily, our region was already digitized, so we were able to access the like high resolution imagery from that.
How did they take that footage back then in the 60s? How did they get aerial? Did they actually have to fly over and...
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, the technology was originally developed in World War II for military uses, kind of like GIS in World War II. But anyway, so it was because they wanted to get accurate pictures of the trench because like at first they just had like one trench on either side, but then as like they got more and more, they became like multiple trenches, like fortifications, like defense in depth. So they wanted to like map all of this territory really accurately. So once they sent the men like into the trench, they could actually know what like horrendous things they were about to run into.
Okay.
So that's where it came. It was literally just people in a biplane. It was a dude flying the plane and the dude in the back in the old-timey biplane with a camera just pointed down going like chick, chick, chick.
Yeah.
And that eventually like evolved into more sophisticated sort of mounted cameras that were actually like in place and fixed in place, and they had like gyroscopes that allowed them to like have some of the vibrations and keep steady. And yeah, so that's basically how aerial photography got started. And then that was replaced by satellites when we got those, because that was satellites and drones actually, because satellites for the like top level and drones for the really like we need this now quick overhead photography for like if you saw like in the flooding and like the wildfires in Maui, both of those disasters have seen a lot of like rapid response aerial photography from drones.
Thanks, Ethan.
So that was a good segue from Ethan because when photos are taken from a plane or even a satellite, they don't always necessarily line up with the information that we have digitally. So we have to do a process called georeferencing, whereby we sort of look at references on the image and references that we have digitally and match them up. So we're basically stretching the image in certain ways so that it overlays properly on the digital information that we already have. So that was a large part of what we did. I think that the aerial photography was already georeferenced.
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, so that one was a lot easier. We just plopped it in and then grabbed the parcel data also from VCGI and just overlaid it. And that was basically it. That one was like pretty straightforward. And of course we had some conversations about what color will it be? How do we properly render the parcel lines so that they look correct or are easily identifiable? And then what area of Rutland should we focus on that's really going to best tell this story of, medium to low density expansion that occurred from, 1942 onward, basically. And the other one was a bit more of a lift. That one we took what still are called, Sanborn fire insurance maps, and that was a company that went across the U.S. in, through, I don't know, like maybe the late, probably like the early 1800s. I don't know when they.
I think it was like
shop.
Mid to late 19th century to like the early 1900s. I haven't seen a Sanborn map after 1920.
Okay.
So.
But they did incredible work, basically just going through every little town, big and small, really, and mapping out all the buildings that exist, and then, for fire insurance purposes, so that they could tell, I guess, how easily would fire spread through this neighborhood, what are the ages of the buildings here, and so they had this very accurate representation of building footprints, hundreds of years ago, or 100 years ago, and we took that because it was a great, source for determining what the density was back then, and we were able to georeference that as well. So I downloaded those images from the Library of Congress and began overlaying them on current satellite imagery, and seeing. Thankfully, like, Rutland has a lot of old housing stock, so there's a ton of buildings that we were able to reference and say, all right, this corner of the building was here, so we're just going to drag it to there, and then again, just sort of like stretching out the image so that it would properly align with what we still know today. And that was like the core of what we did there. There was a bit more that I did from, a photo manipulation side, whereby I was pulling out the original paper background so that we could see through to the satellite imagery underneath. But yeah, those are all the core components and steps of how we created the maps. I can show you a bit over here, but it's actually told me.
Are you a graphic designer? What is your background, Nick?
I started in video, mainly doing like visual effects and motion graphics, and then got pulled into marketing through a creative think tank, and that taught me like how to hold workshops and do design thinking for larger organizations. And it was there that I kind of learned how powerful data visualization was. So I went back to school for data visualization, and that's where I learned a lot more about, composition and typography and stuff like that.
Excellent.
Yeah. And it's what got me to learn, the underlying technology of GIS and stuff like that.
Okay.
So yeah, here we have like a modern, component of 3D building scans. So in the same way that they do aerial photography, they just go over and use LiDAR to scan all of the buildings. So we were able to look at this in relation to what we were doing. So basically here I can show you the way that we worked through it. We had like the modern satellite imagery.
Okay.
And then this layer is the 1942 imagery. So what I basically had to do is flip this on and off, and sort of look for spots, especially downtown was very helpful. Our building, for example, there's still the same building outline. So I was able to sort of grab the corner of one and drag it to there in order to do that reshaping. And then once everything was reshaped, we could simply overlay, the modern day parcel data, and that's how we got it, pretty much. And it's pretty rad. Like, I mean, you can see it in the final exhibition, but here as well, like, it's just very obvious where the expansion is taking place, and even just in terms of the size, it's a story that really tells itself visually, which is always what you're aiming to do.
So what's next, you guys? What are you working on now?
What is next? So, I mean, we're partially through sidewalk inventory for the whole region. We finished Rutland City. That was another project Nick and I worked on a lot. Nick more so, especially like the technical building out the architecture of the system. So the main sort of goal with that is just collect a lot of data which has never been collected before about sort of the width of the sidewalk and the width of the green belt and whether or not there's like, a warning ramp for ADA compliance, because Rutland's a city with a lot of infrastructure from different eras, and some of it is sort of up to modern standards, some of it is not. So really just getting a whole handle on all of that and getting that data set can then allow us to sort of do more analysis for the city or the local towns, and sort of looking at like, how do you want to prioritize, sidewalk reconstruction? Is this a main goal? Like, here's the condition of your network. So do you want to do things like prioritizing sidewalks around schools and parks, or like potentially doing like more of an equity lens to it, which really is only doable in Rutland City just due to the fact that like the information about demographics is like in census tracts, which are like a couple thousand people, I think. So like in a place like Rutland City, it breaks down into like smaller chunks, whereas like you go to a place like, West Rutland, and West Rutland is just all one census tract, so you can't really get a sense of like equity in terms of where people are living. It's just the overall area. So that's what we're working on right now, and we're hoping that one of the exciting pieces is we can do a lot of like visualizations out of that to show, for example, like a greenbelt visualization where we like look at the downtown district and the actual show like visually the size of all the greenbelts and where there's no greenbelt, so you can kind of see that visually.
Okay, that's awesome.
So that's one big thing we're working on. We have a pilot project right now that's right outside the office. You may have seen it when you came in. It's a crossing pilot to look at basically making the crossing on Merchants Row safer, because especially there's the Wonderfoot Children's Museum just moved in, there's the Boys and Girls Club, so there's a lot of small children, and it's a really wide street because back in the day there used to be streetcars that ran down the middle of it, so it was actually a 4-lane street back in the day, because there was like streetcar lanes in the middle and then horse and buggy lanes on the side. So the street is exceedingly wide, and it's been sort of updated to just a single vehicle lane street, which results in a street in which there's generally low yielding to pedestrians in the crosswalk by drivers, because the street is really wide and encourages them to like speed up heading towards a crosswalk, when all the research shows that if you want people to stop for pedestrians, you need to slow them down as they approach the crosswalk, and then they'll be slower and they'll be looking around more and they'll have more reaction time to react to that. So those are just two examples of stuff we're working on right now, but I mean there's always like 5, 6, 7 different things I feel like cooking on different burners at any one time. So we've got a lot going on.
Well, they've got the right guys to do it. Do you have anything to add to that, Nick?
No, I mean it's well, yes, I guess.
Yeah.
Oh yes. So I'm heading up the formation of a rail trail council for the Delaware and Hudson Rail Trail, which runs from Castleton down to Pulteney, and then from Granville down to Rupert. And it's pretty great, the rail trail is an incredible asset for our region, and I think that the opportunities we can unlock by collaborating and coordinating efforts across the municipalities and states is going to be pretty powerful. So we've got some great support from the Vermont Agency of Transportation. So it's I'm very excited about that.